You know, you can try to mess with the art of Van Gogh in boycott and protest. You can mess with the words of Roald Dahl, even try to destroy the reputation of my gal, J.K. Rowling, okay? Even kind of break up Mumford and Sons, but you ain't gonna mess with the art of the man sitting next to me, okay? The man, the myth, the legend himself here in Nashville, Jeremy Cowart. Let me tell you a little bit about this man. So, quite the impressive repertoire, if I say so myself, okay? He has been named among some of the most influential photographers, artists by AdWeek, Huffington Post. You've been in Time, in Forbes. You've worked with clients like Nike, Sports Illustrated, ABC, Us Weekly, and your portraits include the likes of the Kardashians, of Taylor Swift, Dolly Parton, Sting, Britney's circus tour, just to name a few, no big deal. And he is also a renegade and a disruptor in the NFT space. So we are going to get into all of this and then some today. Jeremy Cowart, here we are on your couch. It's a vibe. It's an aesthetic. Welcome to Cancel Me, Baby.
Thank you. It's good to be here. That was quite the intro. I appreciate it.
I'm like stiff arming you, but it's only because you know what? That's what artists do. We make shit work.
We do.
Okay.
Yep.
We
The
make
whole studio is just making shit work. Yep.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about, because like I said, you're doing some major work in the new wave of Web3 and reinventing the wheel of art, and kind of what I alluded to before, like not messing with that, right? It's yours. And I think the reason I'm so fascinated by it is because what I do in my show and my work is the idea, we were talking about it before this, of autonomy in a time when everybody's trying to control and censor and shapeshift your art and try to funnel out and tell us what's right, what's wrong. The possibility of, I think, what this new wave offers is so exciting for creators like me, and I thank you for being a part of, creating that wave. But before we get into the future, let's take it back, okay? So you've been around for a while, and even in the emergence of Instagram, I'm really curious to get your thoughts because you've probably seen so many iterations of it, right? And if you remember, as it first started, it was really a place for artists, photographers like yourself to display their art. Whereas now it's morphed into this like shameless, over the top, like this body shot, that, right? The whole thing. Your immediate thoughts on that from a photographer's point of view? He's like, oh, Jesus, Taylor.
No, it just is what it is. I mean, it's almost inevitable that things go there. I'm seeing it right now with AI. Like AI is about to take over, which is going to be weird on Instagram because soon we will not know what's real and what's fake. And I mean, already I'm feeling that. But I think a year from now, it's going to be mass chaos. And so to look back at the beginning of Instagram, I mean, there was that snobbery, like,
yes!
Oh, this isn't art, that's not art. But it's just like, whatever. It's just like, you can't fight it. You just got to figure it out.
Well, you said once, I have a quote where in this day and age, we shoot to remember and share. And it's that idea of kind of like the slang is like, picture it didn't happen, right? Is there a part of you, even though you joke, it's like, yeah, maybe it was for like the snobs back then when it first came out. But is there a part of you that misses that time? Because like I said, now it's, whether it be the shameless like body photos or everyone sharing every goddamn latte they ever had, right? Is there a part of you that's like, I kind of miss that? I don't want to say innocent time, but when it was more of a purist motivation behind it, right?
Yeah. Of course I do. I mean, it was a sweet time. I was so early on Instagram that they used to feature me on their blog.
That's
Instagram
right,
used to have a blog when they first began. And I don't know why I quit. I should have stayed on it. I quit for like 4 years. And so I was one of the very first adopters. They were literally reaching out to me personally. I could have had millions of followers by now had I just stayed the course. But I was building my own social network. Long story there. That did end up blowing up. But with the rest of the social network graveyard, it got buried. But anyway, so yes, but I do miss that beginning days where it was very, very pure in a small, what felt like a very small. I used to get made fun of for using Instagram and Twitter.
How funny.
Because people like didn't understand it. They're like, "What do you tweet?" You know,
Isn't
like
that
all my
funny?
buddies would make fun of me for it, and I was like, "I promise, it's a thing."
Well,
coming.
even now, it's like when you network, you're at events, it's like, do you have an Instagram? That's like the thing. Instead of, do you have a phone number? Do you have an email? It's, do you have an Instagram? And if you don't, it's like, what are you, a fossil? Like, right. And even like blogging, like how blogging used to be the dorky thing, or podcasts too, like meta moment, but like podcasts too. And right now it's like the cool thing, kind of a branch off of that. You have done, like I said, portraits, correct me if I'm wrong, the Kardashians, Taylor Swift, and the Kardashians, Kim especially, has really been this Instagram portrait, like emblematic of what that is, and has set the tone, right, so to speak, and it's trickled down to not only other influencers but the everyday woman. It's like a phenomenon, the look, the aesthetic, even the idea of like the IG model, right? And again, the portrait of the woman. And the reason I ask you this is not only did you do portraits of these women, but your most notable NFT collection, which we're going to talk about, is your collection Block Queens. Not kings, queens, right? So your thoughts on that, how she, I feel like, you know, regardless of how people feel about her, has sort of created the modern IG portrait of a woman in a way.
Yeah, fun fact, I didn't only shoot the Kardashians, I was literally at their house for the first ever episode of their TV show. The first. In fact, I remember that, but then recently I was like, was that really the first? So Googled it, and I watched the first episode, and I'm like, sure enough, that's the day I was at their house. So I have pictures of that entire first episode.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that is when I met and worked with them. But yeah, I mean, she's definitely the template, you know, for better for worse. She is the standard, the queen of IG for sure.
And what are your candid thoughts on that? Not only as an artist, as a photographer, again, who was on the first wave of IG, to see what it's morphed into now, and as someone who, you have 4 kids, I assume. Is there a daughter there in the mix? 2 daughters. Again, candid thoughts on the nature of all of that, right, and what it's become now.
It's becoming something really bizarre. Have you been on TikTok in the last few days?
If I have, I've tried to block it out of my memory. Okay, I have a chip on my shoulder. Please do. I have the biggest chip on my shoulder about TikTok.
This latest filter. I'm literally going to blow your mind live on your show. Because here it is right here.
Let me guess.
This is the newest filter, and it is so real and so good. It looks everybody look just like badasses. You're going to look amazing. You do look amazing, but you're going to look even more amazinger. Check this out.
I'm about to see if he's being facetious or not.
All girls will not look.
I'm so scared. I'm horrified. Absolutely not. I'm in the TikTok, in the filter. So basically what it is, guys, it's these big clowny Botox lips, smaller nose, the high cheek thing like you would expect, like Madonna's, 2023 protege, and I'm horrified. But yes, I myself find I'm conflicted, because on one end of it, it's like power to you in terms of like expressing yourself. And I love that in one, but with Kim specifically, right? It's like, here she is showing her body and promoting that in a thong, and the next, like going to law school. Like that element I love. When it comes to the over the top filters such as this, the tweaking, the this, the that, the standard in that regard, that's where I take issue, right?
Yeah, it's like I was just saying about AI. Like soon, we're nothing is going to be real.
Well, with avatars and human connection, while we're on this topic, like sex, all this, it's like what's the point of no return, and how good is it, right, in the big picture?
Yeah, I don't know. It all scares me greatly, it terrifies me. Somehow it's interesting and exciting in a way.
Right.
I just don't know. It's all a big question mark. I'm amazed at just how fast it's all moving. Like every day there's new AI apps, and I don't know. So I just don't know what to think of it.
Curious, because your collection, Block Queens, before I get into the world of NFT, the naysayers, right? You had 999 pieces. They sold out in seconds. Is that right? Of block, 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
So what is it? Because your Block Queens collection, it's layers. It's over a decade of your work put together in these beautiful layers of different queens, right? And of women, and specifically their faces. So why queens? And when you see again the backdrop of women and sexuality and how they portray it on these social media platforms and for the world, it's a bit of a contrast of your work, because again, it's of course very beautiful, artistic in a different way, and showing just their faces. And is that cognizant on your part? It feels a little bit of like highlighting women and queens, right, so to speak, but also in a totally different way.
Yeah, being a photographer, a lot of the work I do is just women in general, and I do feel like women are art, I really do. And men can be too in our own way.
Shout out to the David in how in Florence, you're crushing it. You're a little wiener out there, no, but it's not quite the same, I know.
In fact, my piece, I just had a piece featured in a Phillips London auction. It's like the highest levels of art, and it was a guy that I featured in that, and so he was definitely art in that piece. Anyway, I don't know, I just had all these amazing photos of women, and I thought to kind of turn them all into abstract art would be really a beautiful collection using generative code to crank out all the outputs. And in the end, Block Queens just made sense, celebrating women and all the diversity, because each piece might have an African American eye and a Caucasian eye with an Asian mouth, or vice versa. And so it was just kind of celebrating all skin colors, all belief systems. Yeah.
I'm curious for your thoughts about the contrast between perhaps the female and the male portrait, and especially now in a pop culture sense. An example of this, right, is Pam Anderson, like on her huge almost comeback, right, and everybody remembering the female full like goddess sex icon that she stood for and that she was, and everyone's now kind of trying to like emulate that and bring it back. And I'm curious why, like I try to think of the male counterpart to that, right? And I'm curious for your thoughts, like what is it about, it's this unspoken thing, kind of like what we just said. It's like women are just art, and men, like, yeah, in a different way, but it's not right. It's like not quite. What do you think that is? It's a universe. It's like we're just drawn to it, right? In a different way.
That's a great question. It's almost like God was really on his game with women.
That is hilarious.
With guys, he was like, yeah, I'll just dial this one in.
Finesse it a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea.
That's a cool way of putting it, though. That's funny.
But yeah, I don't know. Women are just, I think historically throughout art, just more highly considered art. But I mean, the humans period, like we are art. I love looking back through art history and looking at abstract figures, and I'm a huge Picasso fan, huge Basquiat fan, and I mean I took art history in college, and I was always fascinated with the artist portraying and painting humans, sculpting, like whatever the art was. I just love art of humans for sure.
And that's certainly what you're doing now and carrying out in your work in a totally new way. Yeah. As depicted here, and what you're working on now, which we'll talk about, which is really exciting and totally reinventing the wheel of art in the NFT space. Before we pivot, my last sort of toss out and question to you when it comes to women and the beauty of that being on display. You've also have photographed Denise Richards, is that right? Denise is, I call her like my OnlyFans queen. And in celebration of what my message is, that women can be both this, visual sex object and also the intellectual and the brain. I, too, in a project that was very scary for me, but I'm having so much fun with, tying this all together, launched my own OnlyFans, and I'm really playing with all of this. So given you being someone who's photographed her and this wave of OnlyFans almost as a means of expression, right? Your thoughts of that. Is it a means of expression? Is it, like, how do you see that whole platform on the rise and emerging, too?
Yeah, so funny story when I shot Denise. Man, a horrible story. I was hired by to shoot for 3 days. It was like Snoop Dogg, Denise Richards, Ryan Seacrest, a bunch of the playmates. They were all there. And I did a 3 day shoot, and my assistant made a big mistake, and I lost 2 of the entire days of shooting. 2 full days, including Denise's shoot.
No.
Yeah, the Kardashians were there. Anyway,
What was the mistake?
One of my worst.
Or is this NDA?
He deleted the files, like literally deleted the shoot. It was gone.
That is a creative's worst nightmare. The amount of, I remember I had a full-blown 20-minute interview with Natalie Portman that never happens, and the audio didn't save. I was like, I am just going to dig a grave right here, and I'll see you all later.
That hurts.
It's the worst.
How long ago was that?
Again, like the TikTok, I try to suppress it in my graveyard of memories, but maybe 5 or so years ago.
I'm so sorry.
I know. I'm sorry for your loss too. Today's pictures, but yeah, your thoughts on that, and it being yet another platform of, I suppose, self-expression in this time of ultimate suppression. It feels like. Yeah.
I haven't been on OnlyFans yet. In fact, I was blown away the other day that I'd heard that it was originally created as a different type of platform. If people start using it for the way it's used now, I was like, oh, that's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, all these new ways of being able to make a living and provide for yourself, it's like, on one hand, there's so many things shutting down opportunities for creatives, but there's other things emerging that in the end, I think we're going to be fine. But I think if you don't know how to pivot, then you're screwed.
Yep.
You have to go with the flow and keep changing. And if you're not learning constantly, you're also screwed. The creatives who get burnt out or become irrelevant are the ones who get stuck in their ways, and they just try to only do that thing the way they do it. Like, I've had probably the best 2 years of my career because I just keep learning, and I keep adapting to what I'm learning and using those new tools to insert into what I'm already doing, and it becomes more and more interesting.
So what you're saying is, Taylor, get off your high horse and get on TikTok. No, I'm not doing it, Jeremy. No, but so
you're not on TikTok?
I am, but it might as well have cobwebs on it. Like, it is Jack's skeleton's home in A Nightmare Before. It is his coffin. Like, it is just nothing to see there. I have this sort of rebellion against it, just out of principle. It's probably hurting me more than helping me. But there you go, rebel against the man. But no, what you just said. So there's a new podcast out. I mentioned J.K. Rowling earlier. And there's a new podcast out I'm obsessed with, where she's finally having her piece, because, she's had this sort of book burning against her. I don't know if you know about this. Yes. Yes, because of her comments about, women's history and trans as a whole. They're ball of wax. But the podcast is so well done. I'm obsessed with it. I Want to Marry Barry Weiss. I don't know if you are familiar with her. Huge journalist who is also against the groupthink. It's on her platform. But in the episode, J.K. Rowling says something to the effect of what you just said about learning and growing, not only as an artist, but as a human, right? And the way she put it was so great and eloquent. But she said, when you say something, or in your case, maybe you put a work of art out and you're all excited, you have this adrenaline rush. And she says, that's not when I feel the adrenaline, nor when anyone should. It should be in those moments when we think we're so certain and we're all excited and confident. The voice in the back of our head going, well, hold on a second. Can you challenge that? Is that exactly right? Can you learn something from it? Can you pivot? And I thought that was really interesting. Kind of goes into what you're saying, right? Of we don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. You'll have to submit.
I will. It's really good. It's good.
Yeah. By the way, how did Harry Potter get down the hill?
Is this a joke?
It is.
Oh, God, I'm the worst at riddles. Okay. Something with Quidditch, a ball rolling down, the broom, something.
By walking. J.K. Rowling.
But he'll be here all day, folks.
So sorry.
Oh my God, that is so good.
I'm not a good guy.
I love
that is stuck in my head.
No, I love puns, and that is So good. I'm like a how did the chicken get to the other side of the road kind of gal, and even that I'm like, yes, intellectually I got this all day, but when it comes to like knock jokes and riddles, I'm like, you really got me there with that brain buster. Okay, so let's pivot into the NFT space. Obviously, Block Queens selling out in 2 seconds, huge success. Even, on the heels of the Super Bowl, Rihanna's producer for Bitch Better Have My Money sold a part of it or something, with the track as an NFT, same thing, literally sold out in 2 minutes. Now, as someone who has made their way in this space, is paving the way, is obviously so successful, there are so many naysayers who are like, why am I going to pay money for a digital file that I could screenshot, right? What would you say to them?
First of all, I get it because that was my thinking in the beginning too. But over time, as I've gotten to learn about the space now, when I look at my wallet, my digital wallet where my NFTs are stored, I'm probably more proud of that than I am anything else in life that I collect. Wow. And it just becomes a thing. Like I remember Gary Vee preaching that message, like just as you collect baseball cards or fancy clothes or cars, like NFTs will be the future collectible. And that's how I feel now. I can pull up my wallet right now and like show off my collection, and I never show anybody. And that's even crazier is that I'm so thrilled with this thing that only even I know about. Like I don't go and tell people what NFTs I own, but it is this thing that becomes part of, like anything else you collect. It's just a strange. I mean, obviously you hope that they gain value over time, and you hope that it is an investment as well. Some of them, actually a lot of them, have gone down, but I still love my NFT collection. It's a weird thing. Very nerdy, very futuristic, but it's where we're headed for sure.
And it's like no one can touch it. It's yours, both what you own and what you create.
Exactly.
Now, let's talk about the sort of kind of, what I was talking about earlier, but the social implications of this, right? Because what's so obviously with my life's work and what's so important to me about art is its ability to reflect society. I mean, there are so many creative geniuses and minds out there. Even here in Nashville, I see it around us all the time. And the ability that it has to reflect our society, but to also make us think and push boundaries and progress and, push against the status quo. And obviously, given that my show is called Cancel Me Baby, we're in a time where the gatekeepers are like I said, trying to control that now more than ever. You even have a funny thing on your website. You go to your website and there's a pop-up, like a joke about the algorithm, right? So when it comes to art, to news, to social media, it's just everywhere. Talk to me about that aspect. Like, do you feel as an artist a liberation with, again, like what Web3 has in store for us, and no one being able to meddle with what you do, right?
Yeah, I don't know where it's all going. I do see like Starbucks and all these big brands coming for NFTs. And so I think it's just a matter of time. I just think we have to battle through all these horrible headlines right now, like the FTX stuff. It just, like even the other day there was a big hit piece against Bored Apes on CNN. Like there's always some kind of bad headline.
Can you tell me about that? I didn't see that.
What were they saying? Just how a lot of artists have been scammed, and they were just like fudding the space. Fud, you know what that word? Yeah.
Wait, no, I don't. Please get me in on the cool kid lingo.
In Web3, there really is a whole dictionary of new terms. So FUD means fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So anytime someone's fudding something,
that's so fuddy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. They're throwing all the doubt and uncertainty at it and saying this isn't legit, that kind
of course.
But there are amazing artists like Sam Spratt in space and Fewocious and so many others. And so I believe in what it could be. I just think the learning curve has to get way, way simpler for mass adoption anytime soon. But we're going to get there, and I'll be excited to one day be like, yeah, it was just like the Instagram conversation. Back then it was a blog. Right. One day we'll be saying, yeah, back then you had to have like a MetaMask wallet, and you had to do all these stupid things just to own an NFT. Right. But soon it will be just a one-click, Amazon type experience where you just
it will.
where you just grab it and it happens. And so I don't know. I don't think I'm answering your question.
Well, here's the thing, because I'm trying to understand. Number one, I want to get my feet wet because of all of this and have my content there. So again, I have full autonomy and I can control it and get to the people I want without the gatekeepers. Something I'm curious about is how it translates and pertains to your world. So I know for me, right, as a content creator and as a voice in this space, the gatekeepers may be, the platforms or algorithms. Who decides to publish my work? What platforms will be like, we'll take on her show? Who would that be in your space?
Right now, it's still the platforms, like even OpenSea changed their terms this past week where they don't give royalties anymore to the artist. And so, those are still the gatekeepers, the big platforms, but outside of that, nobody.
Okay. So I was going to ask, how do you get around that? I guess it is what work you're doing, right? Reinventing, thinking outside the box and, where it's in your own hands and you're not reliant on someone else and who almost has the upper hand in the world of art.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thankfully, I'm working with some very smart guys working on my smart contracts, which is the contract that gets attached to your art on the blockchain, and they can ensure that even with all the changes over the last month, that my new project will have royalties enforced no matter what. So I'll get paid no matter what. But even still, I guess some of the gatekeepers could, in theory, still change that, but at least this latest round of rules they've enforced, my new smart contract will go around that. So I don't know. That's a great question. But again, outside of that, there really feels like there is no red tape, or it's all then just building your audience and building collectors and get people to be interested in your work, which is what I've been doing and you've been doing for years.
Yep.
So it's more the same in that way.
How about though, Jeremy, thematically, right? Like we are in a time, someone said to me the other day, they're like, you don't even want to get caught saying something wrong on video because you will get viral and not in a cute way, right? I even mentioned Mumford & Sons earlier. Winston Marshall leaves the band as one of the founding members so he can speak more freely on social media. Again, even Roald Dahl, iconic writer, and because we're in such a sensitive time, his words are being changed from fat to enormous to describe a character in his book. Like I see, right? Because we're in the over sensitive, morality police era. I'm sure that has to be in your psyche when creating art in some way, shape, or form, because everything is, this is right, this is wrong, and scrutinized to the nth degree. I'm curious if that impacts you, if you have conversations with other artists about this, and again, kind of sticking it to the man in that sense, right?
Yeah, it's not a conversation to have, but I think you're right. It is something I'm always aware of and thinking about what I say, because you're right. Like everything we say now is basically eternal. It's like on the internet. And not only for me, I have kids, and so I'm always like, oh crap, what could I? There are things that I think that I don't want them to hear, but they might one day, and so I don't know. I guess it is what it is, and so you just try to be who you are and let the rest work itself out. But it is weird to think that one day my kids can just be chilling and Googling dad and finding out all kinds of stuff that hopefully doesn't offend them, but hopefully makes them proud, but you just never know.
No, from what I've seen, your stuff seems, at least again, interviews I've seen you do, what you've said, pretty spotless record. Unless there's something that I missed.
No, nothing that I know of that you missed, but I really am always keeping legacy in mind. I say that we're the first generation where we're building our digital family tree. If you Google your granddad or my granddad, there's nothing. Our parents a little bit, but us, oh man, it's endless. We're building a library of, and to think that one day our great grandkids will have access to all that data.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And it's there forever. I even think it with my OnlyFans. I'm like, this is going to be out there forever, but as a creative, and I'm sure you relate, when you get that spark of inspiration, you get, at least me, I get impulsive and I'm like, it needs to go out now. And there's that push and pull of riding that wave and that like moment of like genius and spontaneity, but also being like, holy shit, this is there forever and ever. And I'm sure with your art, you think that as well. It's like, this is it, right?
This is it.
No pressure, no.
Yeah, all the pressure, for sure. Even like I'm building my new website now, and I'm like going through past ideas and projects. I'm like, do I put these up there? I don't know how much I like them or don't like them, but I'm just pivoting and trying to reposition myself on the internet. I've been a commercial photographer forever. And now I'm just an artist, and I'm trying to rebrand myself. So anyway, it's an interesting task.
That's just part of it. I look at old interviews I did, and I'm like, what on God's green earth were you saying, thinking, wearing? Like, why is this even in the public sphere? In terms, like, pulling it back a little bit, right? Because you talk about, your commercial work, your work then, your work now. Again, bigger picture and what you said earlier about just loving the human aspect of it. What's so interesting about your work is you have photographed everybody from, people experiencing homelessness here in Nashville to Taylor Swift and Sting and Dolly Parton, Garth Brooks, Emma Stone, it goes on and on. Is there a commonality that you have found? Like, couldn't be worlds apart. But is there a commonality between those groups of people that you experienced or noticed, snapshotting them? Snapshotting? Shooting them. Yeah. Just making up words, it's fine. Yeah. I talk about reinventing the wheel. I'm just going to, goodbye to the dictionary. Yeah.
Shooting is a weird word in this day and age.
I know. I always say that with my show, too. I'm like, all right, I shoot at this time. And I'm like, are people going to take that the wrong way? Right. Yeah. Exactly. But yes.
I mean, I am always excited and a bit starstruck to shoot the big celebrities. But then you're reminded, in the moment of the day, they're just as normal as I am, But it's hard. I shot Gwyneth Paltrow once, and she was like my celebrity crush, And so, in fact, just yesterday, I stumbled across those photos, and she was so cool. But I was like in a recording studio with her, just geeking out the entire time. Like, I could not believe it. But she was like, at that time, she was like, I got to do a new Marvel movie so we can pay for this new house.
That's so
I'm like, same.
I know. Same. It's just the worst. Like, my Xfinity pool really needs to be extended today. No, but that's funny. I don't know about you, but people always ask me, because like you, I've worked with so many A-listers, and they're always like, right, the first thing, like, who's the best and the worst? And it's like, I always feel like there's so many, it almost blends together. And it's like, I don't even have standout things like that. I mean, he's like, I beg to differ.
No, I mean, I'm with you. It does all start to blend together. But there's a few moments that stick out for sure.
It's funny because we shot together. That's how we met, in a very cool project that you were working on. And looking into you and your work, it's funny because I feel like our paths probably crossed between the outlets I've worked for, you've been featured on, the celebrities we've worked with. So, and here we are. It all came, full circle. Your final thoughts before we, I really want to talk about this really exciting, game-changing project you're working on, but your final kind of thoughts on why you love art. Like, no big deal, just not a loaded question at all, but why you love art, and again, everything we talked about, like thematically, and how people are feeling suppressed and walking on eggshells and scared to put out their real expression, where you see the state of it right now and where it's going.
It is all the emotions at once. I'm excited. I'm terrified. I'm a little angry, I think.
Because?
I think just now with AI, it's like, it's both good because now the non-artist who's always wanted to be an artist can be an artist just by typing prompts on a keyboard.
Literally, I'm just going to interject, but if you guys don't know, you can literally type in, like, you could upload a picture of Jeremy and then be like, put it in Van Gogh style, and it'll create it in seconds, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you mean. It's like, where's the human.
Well, like already, AI art, just, and I'm talking like not collaborative AI, but just pure AI sitting behind a keyboard and typing words. They're now artists selling those pieces for tens of thousands of dollars already, not having any experience in any art form whatsoever. And I just think a year from now, especially in 2 years, when these AI apps are fully at their full realization of high quality, and they're on all our phones, which they're coming for. Just like Instagram, there'll be apps where you can just any thought you can turn into a like badass, amazing painting and post it online. We're just soon not going to have a clue, truly not have a clue as to what was human made versus what was real. AI. Yeah.
I mean, you even see it. It's like we're eradicating the need for humans. Every time I go to Target, I'm like, can I be checked out by a human? It's all self-checkout, this, that, robots, self-driving cars. And you're right. It's and in terms of art, how do we hold on to that? How do we preserve actual artists creating art and not a computer?
Well, I'm doing we're about to get to it, but I'm doing an event where I think you almost have to prove it. Like we're gonna have to show more proof that we made things. Like I'm doing a live event soon for that reason. I'm like, here it is. Here's all my gear.
Right in front of you, like Outsmart the AI.
And I'm gonna do it start to finish. Someone called my new project AI. They said, "Wow, you're really creating AI," and they said, "I don't mean artificial intelligence. I mean actual intelligence."
right before your eyes. It's like you can't refute that.
Yeah, which is a fun. I'll have to steal that line for the promotion of the project. Yes. But yeah, it is 10 years of ideating and actual, hard work that will reveal itself in this project.
Now, before we get to that finale, I'm curious. You had named Picasso, a couple of your favorite artists, but I'm curious for artists that have really impacted you, moved you, who are your perhaps among your favorite, that because again, I find art, a lot of the purpose is for it to be provocative, right? And to stir up something in the human experience. Perhaps an artist or a work of art that you think because of the climate we're in maybe wouldn't fly today.
That's a great question. What wouldn't fly today? Thinking of watching The Office, so many of those inappropriate episodes wouldn't fly today.
Well, it's funny. This is a different story, but Mindy Kaling, who is a star and writer of that show, she recently talked about this. She was like, The Office would be canceled today, and people are so uptight about cancel culture that they're like, what do you mean, Mindy Kaling? It's always on reruns, and it's like you're so uptight that you can't even acknowledge what she said or what you're saying, right? Exactly. But yeah, in terms of art, any iconic, obviously it's your world much more than mine, but any iconic works or artists who would be,
Yeah, there's got to be some George Condos and some Warhols and Basquiat's even that would likely be frowned upon today or canceled.
What do you think it was about it? What is it about Andy Warhol specifically? Because, it is true, right? He was a provocateur in such a unique way, but I'm curious your thoughts on why.
I don't really know. I don't actually think he was like amazingly talented, gifted as an artist. He just was at the forefront of so many things and had so many great ideas, and knew how to work the system and create controversy, which made it more, essentially somebody one day decided, and this really is how the art world works. Somebody just decided that's viable, and so then it just skyrockets from there. But, I have followed his Basquiat more so, but Warhol, because Basquiat and he became best friends, by default I've kind of studied Warhol a bit more, but yeah, he was something else. I'd be fascinated to know what those guys would be doing today with all this new tech and social media and all of it. It'd be so fun to see.
It's so funny because just last week I interviewed Trace Adkins' ex-wife and partner who founded him, Rhonda, and she talked about how she has such an impressive background, but with country music icons. I asked her what they would make of this climate, and she said it perfectly. She's like, they would just be like, fuck it, like, let's just make art. Like, why is everybody so uptight? That kind of thing. Yeah. So, all right. tell us about what you're working on, your new baby, because it's very, very exciting, and the people need to know. The people need to know your make them see it to believe it, and none of this AI nonsense. So.
Yeah, my whole career I've just followed the ideas wherever the ideas take me, and this idea is to create a 10K NFT project in 10 minutes. So 10K meaning literally I'm going to create 10,000 unique NFTs in 10 minutes. It'll end up being more like 15 to 20 minutes just because the camera isn't quite fast enough to do 10,000 in 10 minutes. I've been testing it. It's about 15. Anyway, and so I will be live performing in front of an audience, both in real life and online. And I'll be kind of revealing doxing in Web3. Doxing means to reveal yourself. So be doxing the entire process for the first time ever. As you see here, I've spent 10 years kind of building this crazy process. And so but I'll be wearing a white mask. It'll look very Blue Man Group-ish, except
we love it.
Except White Man Group, and only white because I'm essentially trying to turn myself into a projection screen.
Yes, there's no racial implications, guys. Relax.
No.
But yeah.
So, and then I will become all of these figures over the course of the 15, 20 minutes, and it really is just a big art exploration. It's called Auras. Auras means like the vibe around somebody. So I'm gonna be 10,000 vibes.
So cool. And you have already, I mean, you're so established and you have so many high profile people, publicists, publications interested in you and in this. Lastly, before we shot, we were talking about the life of a creative and how it's comes with its trials. It's very hard. And you said in a past interview, my worst day working for myself was still better than my best day working for somebody else, right? And it's things like that we really have to hold on to in the day to day, because it's very challenging making people understand your vision and get behind it. Given that, and I know being in the mix here in Nashville with different movers and shakers, artists, everybody loves you and adores you. But do you still, especially because what you're doing is so outside the box and new wave, do you deal with your fair share of naysayers or people who don't get it, who you feel like you have to convince, in a way?
The naysayers are mainly me.
Tell me about it.
My own demons, my own self-doubt, and I don't have a lot of naysayers currently. I mean, I've had a few over the years, but I think people will be excited about this project. I always poke holes in ideas and projects, and I'm like, there's really not a lot to poke here. It's a pretty straightforward, innovative, historic idea. No one has ever done this in any way, shape, or form, and so. I've never been this excited. I'll tell you that much.
Good, but still doubting yourself. Isn't it? We are like tortured souls. Like, I am my own worst critic, even after an episode, and I have to break this habit. I don't know, again, with you and your art, it's like, should I tweak this, that? I'll go back and watch frame by frame. I should have said this. I should have said that. Meanwhile, everyone around me is like, this was the best. Oh, you spoke to me. I'm like, not good enough. It is like we're cursed.
Yeah.
And so, I think I'll just leave it at that, because like what a way to end the sermon. But yes, like recognizing what you're doing is really trailblazing, and hopefully you don't find any holes to poke in it, because that's badass, right, in and of itself. But I'm sure you will, because that's how we're wired, and we're psycho.
Yeah, always. Part of the gig.
Exactly. Occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Jeremy Cowart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
for your work, doing what you do, bringing art to life, literally.
I'm honored. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And the mind of a psycho creative, these notes, like Dr. Scribble,
I love it.
Picasso.
Like my sign out front.
Oh, yes. Jeremy has a very much, very much on brand paper towel taped to his door, being like, come in for portraits, Jeremy Cowart. That, again, but we got to have it. We got to mix and match.
Yeah.
Like, it's like my scribble notes,
Mm-hmm.
You can't explain the genius. Just let it happen. All right. Thank you, sir.
Of course.